All right, guys. Andrew Bros here. Hey, I want to do a video on Staley's notes after the loss to the Broncos, which is again frustrating. But again, it raises a lot of questions in where this team is going. And obviously, we know we're in the playoffs, so that's excellent news. But Brandon Staley's been getting a lot of heat. I know a lot of you folks have talked quite a bit about that with us. During our post game show and even my brother's video we did yesterday. Look, I kind of understand the argument and the frustration with some of the decisions Brandon Staley made, but let's review some of the articles and then we'll go through Staley's notes. Staley's notes are actually quite short this week. I think, really very clearly he's very focused on the Jaguars at this point, but so he kept things very brief as far as the, notes are concerned for the transcript. But let's go through some of the, articles. I know Yahoo Sports and a few other places. I'm gonna highlight just a couple of articles and then we'll kind of go through the conversation. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Brandon Staley made a really bad decision, playing Williams, playing, any of our starters at all, right? The argument can be made both ways that, look, at the end of the day, you still got to field the team, right? You don't have 53-man roster. You had a 48-man roster. So you're whittling it down and players got to play, and so there's arguments to be made both ways. So let's get into some of the articles and then we'll go from there. So this one's a little interesting. Let me move it around just a little bit here. Let me see if I can find a better. Yeah, this is pretty good. So, So again, Staley started talking quite a bit about, seed was locked in, right? The big concern, of course, was really conversations around Mike Williams, right? This is where a lot of people get frustrated with Brandon Staley, but apparently LA coach Brandon Staley doesn't seem to have value in rest or avoiding injury, right? Look, I think if you're a player, I don't think they're going to really believe that that's, what Brandon Staley was really going after in that scenario, right? Bottom line, you still got to field the team. You still got to have people out there to play the game. And if you notice, pretty much everybody was gone the second half, right? We talked about it quite a bit on our post-game show with Rich. And, Rich was very clear. He's like, hey, why don't you just play half of the game and then sit and rest? Okay. And that's ultimately what happened, right? So first three quarters, and then I think this is kind of funny. Staley played the Chargers starter the first three quarters Sunday, and it turned out as poorly as you'd expect. Austin Eckler took a massive shot from Josie Jewell. Joey Bosa didn't play great. Mike Williams had a bit of an injury. Really, just it sounds like a bruise, some sort of bad bruise, right? I mean, this is one of those really horrible situations, and I can understand the argument, guys. I can understand why people are so frustrated with Staley at this point. But again, it's like, well, you still got to field the team. You still got to have players out there, doing a job, right? And actually moving the ball and you play to win the game, right? So, but again, fourth quarter, you got rid of Justin Herbert, let him sit, and he doesn't need a lot of work. Now it's interesting. The Giants pretty much sat all of their players. And I don't know. I think there's arguments both ways. I really do. To me, I'm right in the middle. I think in this sense, I actually think he did what's probably best. Because at the end of the day, look, you still need your players to be out there playing the game, right? You still need them to feel like, hey, I'm playing, my head's still in the game, and it's just another week, right? Because I think if you sit people, I think people mentally start losing their edge. And we don't want that. We want the highest performance available for each one of these players against the Jaguars, right? So again, we know what happened. I was at that game in SoFi. I wanted to jump off the top of the roof. I couldn't even believe how bad it was. But again, Nick Cottrell talked a little bit about this. There's only 48 guys that you can choose from, and that aren't easy to do. Hindsight perfect for everybody on the outside, but these games are not easy to manage. They're not, because you don't have that many players. We did it with the best of our ability. Now, and again, I agree with that comment, right? Because there's only so much you can do. You still have to field the team. You still have to have things going. But again, there's arguments both ways, right? So let's go to the next article, and then we'll go to his notes. This is, Brandon Staley just, again, Brandon Staley, coaching decision. Again, this is going to be in the description below. So if you guys want to read this a little deeper, wider, you can. But, you know, again, Brandon Staley always has this mantra, and it's our way, right? The thing is, he wants to win and lose the way he wants to play the game, right? Again, he would rather win with the ball in hand than have the defense, you know, have to stop the offense, right? Because in the NFL, it doesn't happen very well, especially, you know, in fourth quarters, right? So, but this is a really good little article or little quote here. As a leader of this team, I got hired. What I was trying to do is set the example every day for what we want this team to look like. Okay, my big thing coming here was our way, which is relationships and competition. Making sure that you're living a mission statement every single day and you're an example. And again, Staley really is, right? He's a cancer survivor. There's a lot of things that he's done in his entire life. I know that's been on my mind when I wake up and go to sleep, right? And again, right, you can argue, well, he's only 19 and 15 in 2 seasons. You know, and again, we're 10 and 7. It would have been a lot better to be 11 and 6. That's kind of what we all expected. But again, the game didn't really mean anything, right? So again, there's a lot to be said about Brandon Staley, and there's a lot to be said about him. Now, I will say this. In the NFL, winning and losing comes down to really how you perform in the playoffs, right? That is 90% of what really matters is how you perform in the playoffs. You don't perform well in the playoffs, then you know what? Doesn't matter. You know, you're not a good head coach, and that's just the reality, right? So, so it's interesting seeing how this plays out. And I'll tell you right now, this is going to be big, right? Let's say he gets a playoff win. What do you guys think? Let's say we beat the Jags and even beat the Chiefs. What do you guys think? Right? Again, winning cures all frustrations. I firmly believe that. And look, why did I highlight the our way mentality? Okay, this man right here has changed this team culture. Despite what anybody may think about the Chargers, you know, the Chargers now have a team culture that is great. And again, it starts from ownership. I mean, think about how much more engaged the Spanos family is now since Brandon Staley got here. Tom Telesco's gotten better. Players have gotten better. I promise you the coaching staff has gotten better, right? And so, and our owners are becoming more active, right, with the team. So in that reason alone, that's a head coach, right? You need a leader, and that's Brandon Staley. Now, again, I've always argued about this. I do not like Lombardi's play calling for the most part, right? I think, yes, it works when you got your Williams and your Allens, and you know we're full steam with all of our wide receivers. We got Parham and Everett. Yes, it works great that way. Having said that, when we didn't adjust and didn't make scheme people open, right? And I think that's really where we struggled with all those injuries. So again, Lombardi's always been my frustration as far as the coaching staff is concerned. And I think defensively we're playing great. But the good news is, look, we're in the playoffs. We're there. Despite what you may think about Staley, again, I want to hear your thoughts. Again, we read all of your messages. We want to, we want to reply to you guys. I mean, the whole point of this channel is to engage with the fan base. So please let us know what you guys think, right? What do you really think of Staley? I know I'm hearing a lot of pros and a lot of cons and all the above, but it's an interesting one. It's an interesting discussion for me. So, all right, so let's go into the notes. And again, this he didn't give a whole lot of notes, just so you know. Anyways, we'll discuss a little bit more about this. So, head coach Brandon Staley, first thing he says, defensive performance. We did not play well in the secondary. I agree with that 100%. We played poorly, and I'll be honest with you. There was some discussions. We talked on our lives about this. Guys, check out these lives. We're going to have a live with UFC Jag probably Friday, so that should be pretty good. He's one of the big top YouTubers for the Jags. He was on our show last time. Great guy. And so very excited to have him. But this is a good point, right? This is where we have struggled this season. Now, when our secondary is playing bad, which we did, we gave up far too many explosive plays, individual breakdowns. Now, I would argue part of this is because you had a lot of people rotating out, right? Again, going back to the injury conversation, you have to communicate, right? And when you have Derwin James out there, and then you bring in maybe like a JT Woods, and then you bring in Nas and Lowe, and maybe even I think Leonard was in for a brief period of time at safety. That's a lot of rotation, guys. And I feel like a lot of these plays were just kind of breakdowns. They weren't communicating well with one another. Again, not a great excuse, and it shouldn't happen that way. By the way, I am also putting a link in the description below for Brandon Staley's post-game show. He was pissed. So was Justin Herbert. They were not happy. Very short, very brief, very upset. They were not happy with the media or even the way that our team performed, quite frankly, right? Because Brandon Staley's not the type of guy who wants to leave points on the table or show a bad performance, which we did. Bottom line, we're a better team than the Broncos this year for sure. And we made Russell Wilson look like an absolute god as a quarterback. And look, it is what it is. But again, these plays, these explosive plays, are the things that he wants to stop, right? And we have stopped him, recently. I will say this: if we play the way we did against the Broncos, we definitely are going to lose against the Jags, right? So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out, and how they switch things up moving forward. Now, I will say this: I think you're going to see some exotic blitzes. I think you're going to see some major changes this week. Clearly, Brandon Staley has some more gas in the tank and some things he hasn't shown this season. I'm hoping to see that on the offensive side of the ball as well too, because I think there's a lot more that we can do. Like there's a lot of schemes that we're just not quite explosive enough. We're not doing things the right way, in my opinion. So anyways, but I think, very interesting to see, because our safety play has been great up to this point, especially recently. But it'll be very interesting to see how Derwin James plays and how our defensive performance, continues to progress. A lot of people talk about Joey Bosa as well too. Look, he was on a snap count. I really don't feel like he was there for a long period of time. We all know that. Like, they didn't want him there for a long time. And this is sort of the argument, right? We wanted to play a strong first half, and I think we played decent in the first half. I mean, not great, but we played okay. And again, I would say if we kept our starters out there for the entire game, we would have won that game. I really do think that leaving Herbert out there would have completely changed the game. We would have won for sure. Having said that, we didn't, right? Flowing game second half, be able to phase Bosa out when we felt like it was right. And that's exactly what happened, right? Ronald Hill, Give Smith, they all decided, what's the point? Again, we just want to get the wiggles out, make sure he understands, all right, this is what game time feels like, and leave the rest on the field, come playoff time, because that's the only time we care. We felt he got enough good snaps, both run game, pass game, and that's all we needed. That's all they needed from him. They did not need a sack. They didn't need anything specific from him. And I think he did a good enough job, right? So it's exciting to see that, right? Bosa's progression, I think it's more that he continues to practice. And again, part of the problem, guys, is when you're not in game time. And this comes back to the argument of you need your players to play. And again, I understand the concept, because every time you see things statistically that would tell your team not to sit out a whole week. We have a whole bye week. You should not sit, because your body needs to continue feeling the hits. Your mind is not quite where it needs to be, and that's where Bosa's at right now. He is not where he needs to be. He's been out for such a long time. Yes, his body's in better shape, but his motor, his gas, he looked gassed out there after just a couple plays. I noticed that a few times. I mean, I saw him. Oh my gosh, I think it was like the second drive, and it zoomed in on him, and he was just puff and win. And I kept thinking, man, you could tell he's just not where he needs to be. So again, what is the coaching staff going to do? Who knows, right? But again, Bosa is on his way back. It'll be interesting to see how much playing time he gets during the playoffs. I would think he would get quite a bit, but again, you don't know, right? You got to wonder, because KVN's done a great job of rushing the passer. Do you think they might run some stunts? They might have. I mean, think of a four-man line on a passing play, right? You got Mack, Morgan Fox, Kyle Van Noy, Joey Bosa. Think about that. You run stunts on it. Guys, there's a lot of ways you can make that look really good. And I we'll see, right? If it's a pure passing play, I think that would be a pretty interesting front to throw out there, just see how they perform. So anyways, we'll see how it goes. having played 2 games, it's going to be closer. He's still working his way through it. Look, bottom line, Bosa's not 100%. We know that. We want him to be 100% for the playoff game. Boy, I just don't know that he's really there, though, right? I mean, when I saw him out there, I was like, wow, this guy is really not himself. And that's just the reality, guys. That's just how he is right now. He's not there. His body's not there. He just doesn't have the cardio. I'm sure that's probably what he's working on more than anything right now, is really just trying to get himself game ready. But again, playing him is going to benefit him. Sure. MRI, Williams, no fracture or a muscle injury, which is great. A contusion. So basically a bruise or some sort of, back spasm, something of that nature. He'll be back at practice this week. Okay. No problem. And again, it looked a lot worse than it was. But the big concern, of course, is like where does Williams progress from here moving forward? And the good news is it's not too bad, just a contusion. So big bruise. So the process behind determining playing time for particular players. And this is also, if you go back and watch his video, again, description below, those decisions are mine. Obviously, we're collaborating with the coaching staff, front office, and ownership. Again, it's a tough side of the NFL. You have to balance competition. There's only a certain amount of players that can even play. So again, they're trying to strike a balance, right? And we'll learn from a lot of it and just keep moving forward. And bottom line, guys, you still had to field the team. Okay. No matter what, you could not have everybody sit. And again, I think that's partially why I think the game was so uninspired. I think everyone on the team knew that we had the 5th seed, so there wasn't a whole lot to do there. They were not putting their bodies in harm's way. And that makes sense, guys. I mean, from a player perspective, right? I can understand the argument of, all right, I'm not going to really go 100%. And the Broncos had nothing to lose, right? They were just playing for respect at that point. And so why push it, right? And that's really where the Chargers were at. And again, they probably could have just put every scrub out there. But, you don't really want to do that. You really want your team to still perform and still have the ability to get out there and get better. And now, look, you got a whole week to, get healthy, right? So it's interesting. This is very uncharacteristic. 2 fumbles. That's one of the things that I've been very impressed with this season, is that we really have not given the ball up. And again, we're one of the 6 top teams in the NFL in the takeaway margin. I think we're +3, I believe, is where we're at this season, which is great, right? So if you win the turnover margin, you usually win games, and we obviously are. Ball security has been great. And, because I remember we had a lot of, fumbles or, forced, Allen would get hit and then the ball would pop out. It happened with Williams a few times too, but we've done a better job of securing the ball, which I think is really great. So, I don't think there's a team in the NFL that emphasizes takeaway margin more than we do. And again, it goes back to safety play, right? The whole point of the safeties in this team scheme is to do what? Take away the ball, right? That's where Derwin James is amazing. He's very good at knowing when to be deep and when not to be deep, right? And so, again, that's the difference between Nas and Lowe, right? They just don't have that ball sense like Derwin James has. But Derwin's always so good at like rushing the passer as well too. But again, that's the ball security. That's takeaways, right? Stealing the ball away from the other team is a big thing. So, DeAndre Carter's had a few issues. Again, I think if we hadn't had those 2 fumbles, we probably would have won that game again. But again, what were we really playing for, right? And Eckler, just little things you just don't expect to see happen, right? And especially Eckler. I think Eckler's done a really good job of securing the ball this season. So, story turnovers. Look, if you can win the turnover margin in every game, you will win the game. Okay, the more takeaways you can get, you will always win, right? So you just got to remember that, right? And that's a big part of it. And it definitely prevented us from scoring a lot, right? So, look, there's arguments both ways about it. And again, I think overall we've been outstanding this season as far as securing the football and takeaways. Again, we're I think +3 in the turnover margin right now. So, another injury we got in there in this again. This is the other one, right? He had a neck stinger, a stinger. You'll see him at practice this week. So, look, nothing serious, right? The good news is, for the most part, everyone came out okay. And again, Callahan, you'll see Callahan and he'll be back. And Trey Pipkins made it out of the game okay. And he did it. The one guy that I would have thought would have maybe made sense to sit would be Trey Pipkins, in my opinion. Earlier, put Storm out there or somebody else, just because he'd been so banged up, right? We really would like to have him be healthy for the playoffs. So, that's the one guy I probably would have wanted to see sit, or would have made more sense to have him sit. And I think that's also partially why Callahan did not play, because I don't remember him having like a really bad injury, but they said, hey, you know what, Ja did a good job. Let's just let Ja play, right? So either way, the good news is Murray should be back. Callahan, Pipkins is looking good, and Williams is fine. So the good news is, guys, we're about as healthy as we can be right now, and that's what we want, right? So, and that's a good thing. Rashawn Slater making progress. Look, I don't think. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he comes back, right? I think he wants to play, right? Obviously, he would want to play at this point, especially since we're in the playoffs at this point. But Rashawn's got a long career ahead of him. So I always get a little nervous about bringing somebody back like that and then re-injuring it. Again, same thing with Joey Bosa. I mean, look at Bosa, right? I mean, his body feels great, but he had an ab injury that was always a problem. And, now his groin is, obviously been repaired. And, it's interesting. And these injuries, can be problematic, right? I mean, they take time. But again, making progress. We'll see what happens. Personally, I don't know. I mean, you might see him in the Chiefs game if that's who we are playing. So, we'll see. But anyways, preparing for the East Coast trip, short week. Me and my brothers have been talking about maybe potentially going out to that game. So we'll see what happens. But it's something we're kind of toying around with, looking at flights. And so we'll see. So stay tuned for that. East Coast trip. We're going to establish a routine starting tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's going to be a game week rhythm. We're going to push the schedule back tomorrow at not start meetings until a bit later. So anyways, they're going to try and put together, an actual, this is basically business as usual, guys. I mean, they're not really going to do anything different, right? At the end of the day, they're going to prepare the same way that they prepared before. And I don't even think this coaching staff is going to sit back and have a larger conversation. It's just another week, in the NFL, guys. We're here to win. So we got to win out. They're going to walk through, go from there. So look, I don't really want to go too deep into this, but I think they're playing the evening of Saturday. So it'd be really interesting to see how that plays out and move from there. So I'm excited. I think it'll be great. I'm excited that we're in the postseason again, guys. And look, it's just another week. It's just another week for the Chargers, man. It's the same thing with the Jags, right? It's just another week. They just got to go out and win. And unfortunately, you lose, you're out. You win, you keep playing, right? So, and the good thing is I think the NFL really wants to see Justin Herbert perform, right? And again, I talked a little bit about this on our postgame show, is that, look, the one thing I will say that we need to do, and I'll just give you my personal opinion right now, how we should game plan for the Jags. And we're going to talk more about this during the week, of course, but you want to make sure you're jamming their wide receivers at the line. Do not let them run free. They have a lot of weapons on that team. So you got to get physical with these guys. You want Callahan getting physical with these guys at the line. You want Mike Williams getting physical with their wide receivers at the line. Do not let them run free. Play them very similarly to the way that we played the Dolphins, right? Do not let, Tyreek Hill just run free down the zone. That just doesn't work for us, right? So, and again, a lot of the plays the Jags run are very short timing patterns, just real quick outs. They're just dinking and dunking you the entire time, right? So again, we're going to run light boxes. Hopefully we can stop ETN. Hopefully we can stop that running a little bit and then go from there, right? But again, it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, right? Okay, so on the team's travel schedule, we'll emulate the Week 16 plan. It'll be similar. We'll be getting there Friday evening and not being in a hurry to do anything. Whenever you have the night, the team, the day before Friday, we won't be doing anything football-wise per se. Hotel, wake up on Saturday, have some meetings, and then get ready to play. I think this makes sense. I mean, you want at least a day, the day you're playing, to just kind of be a relaxing day. Go out there, feel good. Hopefully your body feels pretty good at that point, and you're there, right? So I think the interesting thing about this matchup more than anything with the Jags is that we're both different teams, right? The Jags, that was kind of like their breakout game where they showed the league that they're a pretty good team. And then we kind of showed the league that we're actually a pretty crappy team, right? I mean, let's face it, we didn't do a great job of, really doing well at all, for that matter. I mean, we just really did a poor job of looking good. I think we got blown out. It was just a ridiculous number. I mean, again, I was at the game. It was so frustrating. Okay, they're a different team, and they've been through a lot. And again, we are a different team, right? And we had all kinds of injured players at that point, right? And so I think Herbert was just coming off his fractured ribs. Everyone was out, right? And so again, it's interesting, where they're at, right? I think they were 2-6 at one point, got hot at the end. I mean, it's interesting to see how these teams make it to the playoffs, right? The Jags are definitely a hotter team. So they're playing good football when it matters, right? And that's good for them. But again, hopefully we've learned and we've improved the way we are. So expectations of Mike Williams, that was the indication given to me this morning that he'll be able to play. I think he'll probably rest for the most part. I really don't believe that they're going to do a lot to push him hard or not hard at all this season. Getting up to this game on Saturday, right? So good news is, guys, knock on wood, we got out, no problems. Hopefully there won't be any other issues during practice at this point. But again, it's pretty interesting to see, where we sit and where we stand, moving forward. So I'll wrap up my thoughts here, guys. Look, Brandon Staley's taking a lot of heat on playing players for this game. And I don't necessarily disagree that he shouldn't have some sort of heat. But bottom line, guys, you still got to play players. You still got to play people, and you still got to go out and compete. You still got to, feel the team. And that's what he did, right? Unfortunately, Williams got a little banged up. But what do you guys think, right? I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think, that was a horrible decision? Personally, I think it's a tough decision, right? And that's what we pay Brandon Staley to do, right? And that's what we pay our coaching staff to do is make decisions like this are very hard. I think he did the right thing. I think sitting players the second half was very important, but let players play, right? Again, you have to remember in this game, it's always next man up. So it's always good to get players to come out and play and prepare and get some game time experience. So, but what do you guys think? What is your prediction for the game versus the Jags on Saturday? I know I'm excited to be there. Potentially, we'll see. Having conversations about it, but what do you guys think? Do you guys think we got a shot? What's your score prediction? Love to hear from you guys. Anyway, guys, actually, as always, like and subscribe, share the video, and see you guys in the next one.